Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different and talk a little bit about my feelings on Payday 3 after Update 7, talk a little bit about my feelings on Crime Boss, give some comparisons between the two and just give my overall thoughts on both the heisting games at the minute. But I thought, why not do it while actually playing Payday? I can't remember the last time I did a gaming commentary video, but I thought, you know what? We're trying different things on this channel, so why don't I just talk to you about what I would normally talk about while actually playing the game? And I just want to try mixing up different content. It's what I said I wanted to do, trying to do different content styles, talk about different things, like the Life is Strange video I put up on Sunday, which, by the way, at the time of recording, that's already pulled 1,000 views in about 12 hours. Didn't expect that. I figured it'd go 10 of 10, and it has, but it's done a lot better than I thought. So to everyone who checked that out, thank you. I really appreciate that. I will, like I said, occasionally do videos on the games, and it's nice to see that at least some of you will care enough to check it out. If you didn't watch it and you watch this video, honestly, it's fine. Life is Strange isn't for everybody, but I just appreciate the reception that it got. And from the way I've worded that, you've probably already guessed that I'm releasing this video the day after I've recorded it. I'm going to have some days off and spending some time with some friends this week. I definitely need it. I need to get out of this room for an actual decent amount of time. And it basically means that I'm not going to be doing any Payday video on Friday for the dev blog. I don't know what the dev blog's going to be. If it is something good, when I come back from my break, I will do a video on it. What I want to talk about was Payday 3 versus Crime Boss, as the title says, because I talked about this a little bit recently in my video talking about Payday 3 negativity, where I said that I knew I'd ruffled some feathers when I was talking about Crime Boss, and that some people were annoyed that I compared it to Payday 3 and said that it was better than Payday 3. I did that because I really did want to share how much I liked Crime Boss, and I felt like a statement like that would draw people to the video. It was also just something that I personally believed, and to be honest, I do still kind of believe. I'm going to get into more details in this video, but I'm playing Payday 3 a lot more, but I still do think as a package Crime Boss is probably better right now. But I think it's been really interesting to properly try both games again, especially since the progression update for Payday 3, and really get to offer my proper opinions and feelings on the game now that there's an actual way to progress in the game. I mean, I've been max level for a week or so now. I'm like nearly 20 ranks into Renown, I think. I'm really enjoying just mindlessly replaying the heists. There just isn't enough of them. But when you compare the two games, I think it's important to remember that one doesn't have to be bad because the other one is good. Oh, great. Okay, apparently we're going loud. Oh, well, let's have some fun. But yeah, I just think that it's nice to have these comparisons. I mean, for one thing, I don't think there's any harm in a bit of healthy competition. I think saying that one game offers a better experience than the other just encourages the other one to do better anyway, and vice versa. You know, it could be that in a couple of months I say Payday 3 is better than Crime Boss, and then the Crime Boss devs will be motivated. Healthy competition in the gaming industry is something that is really good, and it's better than the alternative of studios being laid off. Way too much of that at the minute, especially with Xbox. I mean, it rubbed me the wrong way seeing Matt Booty talk about dev studios in the game showcase literally weeks after they shuttered 4 studios. Not a fan. So in comparison, a bit of healthy competition, that doesn't do anybody any harm. Someone just really ended the negotiation phase. Bro! Some of these pubs, man, I swear down. So please don't take my statement of saying that Crime Boss is better than Payday 3 as some big damning statement to Payday 3, because it just isn't. I like both games, and both games have good things and bad things to them. What's the harm in talking about that and the pros and cons and seeing if maybe one game can learn from the other, or one can go more in a unique direction? I don't think both games should be like each other, and I think sometimes people say that Crime Boss and Payday are so alike when they're honestly not. They're both heisting games, they're both in the same genre, but would you say that Battlefield and COD are the same game? I personally wouldn't, someone else might, but I don't think they're anywhere near the same game, but they're just both shooters. These are both heisting games, but they both have unique things. So what I'm going to do is basically go through a few headings that I think are important comparisons to make and just give my thoughts. And for all of this, I want all of your thoughts in the comment section below. Whether you disagree with each point, whether you think one game is better than the other, if you haven't tried one of the games, presumably it'd be Crime Boss if you're watching this channel. So I'm going to start off with the combat, which is quite apt right now, considering we're playing loud gameplay. I will say right off the bat, I think the gunplay in Payday 3 is vastly superior to Crime Boss. I don't think it's a problem for Crime Boss. I think the thing is, Crime Boss is a much more arcadey type game, and Payday 3 is a lot more refined shooter-wise than Payday 2 was. Payday 2's shooting was quite arcadey in that same Crime Boss sense, but Payday 3's feels more modern, a bit more like a Call of Duty game, and I know that that has annoyed some people. There are definitely quite a few things that Payday 3 took inspiration from COD, and not all of them worked, like the menus, UI, things like that. It's not worked in a lot of ways, but the gunplay in particular, I said it since the June preview, I really like how Payday 3's gunplay feels. It's responsive, it's engaging, I really enjoy it, so it's definitely a plus that Payday 3 has. Crime Boss's gameplay is not bad, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like it's a little more mindless, because you can just randomly shoot and get the kills. In Payday 3, you can pretty much do that, getting your edge and your grit and trying to get more damage and dealing with different specials. There's more variety there in Payday 3's gameplay, and I think that's definitely a plus for that game. But stealth is the really interesting one, because I actually think that both games do really special things and they both do them well. So even though one's different to the other, I don't think one's necessarily better or worse. With Payday 3, I absolutely love the layout of public, private, and secure areas. So certain things are detected in certain areas guards don't care, in certain areas they'll try and arrest you, in certain areas they'll escort you. The balance there, I think, is really good, and also the amount of unmasked stealth you can do. I think with Payday, it is more of a serious heisting game, and again, Payday 2 maybe wasn't quite as much, but they take the layout of the heist a bit more seriously in stealth, and once you mask up in Payday 3, you can't unmask. Logically, it doesn't make the most sense. If you're careful about how you play, you could always take your mask off and then keep working around, but in terms of the gameplay mechanics and the way these heists play out, I think the game would be far too easy if you could unmask after masking up. I think you have to have that point where you decide when the right time to commit to the mask is, and then after that you've invested its full send, and I think that works. Whereas Crime Boss plays very differently. You don't even have a mask to put on because masks are for wimps, as Travis Baker would say, but you have the idea of being able to put your gun out and put it away. So in certain areas, that will mean that you can just blend in like it's a public area in Payday 3, but in certain areas you'll still get attacked by guards or reported or get strikes. The strike system in Crime Boss is kind of similar to Payday 3's pager system, but a bit more flexible, because you get a strike in Crime Boss for smashing a camera or, killing a guard. Whereas in Payday 3, as long as you can deal with any situation, it doesn't really matter as long as you have enough pagers with guards, whether you take them hostage or, kill them. Either way, that's your main metric for stealth success. And I think the thing that swings it for some people with Crime Boss is that the fact that you can subdue every single civilian and or guard makes it too easy. But again, it kind of plays into the nature of that game. And I think a lot of the stealth heists in Crime Boss have a lot more guards as a result. So even though it's easier to deal with them, you have to be at least somewhat methodical in dealing with them chunk by chunk, and maybe dodging somewhere you don't need to. Whereas you've got heists like No Rest for the Wicked, like I'm playing now, where in stealth there's, 5 guards? 6 guards? There's just a few more than there would be to deal with all of them with the pages, even on the lowest difficulties. But enough where if you got a couple of them with the radios, you could work around it. Whereas if this heist was, say, in Crime Boss, you may have a similar amount. I mean, the bank heist in Crime Boss does have only a few guards, but conversely, you could have a load more outside. You could have whole outside sections. There are some warehouse heists where there's not many guards inside the building, but there's like a dozen outside, and you have to deal with all of them. So I think both of them offer some really unique takes on stealth, and I really like both of them. I don't think that either of them particularly suffer there. The next thing, though, is progression. This one, I think, is a really interesting topic for debate, and I'm really keen to see what different people think about the progression systems now, because now Payday 3 and Crime Boss both have improved progression systems. Both of them have done things well, and both of them maybe have done things badly. I don't know. I have differing thoughts on both. For Payday 3 in particular, I think it's just amazing that we finally have progression for actually completing a heist. It's none of this challenge-based stuff. I've made comments already that I think the challenges should have stayed in the game, at least some of them weapon challenge-wise. I think removing all of them was a bit too much of a broad stroke, but I do understand the motivation as to why they would do that, because you, of course, don't want to have any evidence of the thing that most people hated in the game. You can then ease it back in later, and people will be more open to it because you can say, well, we've done it differently this time. But the most important part is that now in Payday 3, just completing a heist and getting all bags, stealth, loud, wherever it may be, you get progression. I think the only disadvantage to Payday 3's is, ironically, it's now too easy to level up. They've gone from one extreme to the other. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing right now. I think Payday 3 players have not had enough to get excited over since the game's launch. So I think, honestly, letting people get that really high level up and get that joy out of getting high levels, not in the challenge-based progression system, and also the fact that there aren't that many heists anyway. So a lot of casual players won't want to grind the 11 heists 500 times to level up. You don't have to play them that many times and you'll get close to it, if not at max level. And eventually, I've no doubt Starbreeze will balance it out, and then as more people come into the game as time passes over the next few years, hopefully, it'll reach a more balanced state, and you'll have the high levels who were there from day one and the people who slowly level up at maybe a better pace than they are right now. I don't think, for the record, that you need to reduce the progression by much. I think maybe 10, 20, maybe 25% reduction might be enough, or maybe just increase the IP that you need for the higher levels, one or the other. Payday 2's progression was very much exponential, where you would level up super fast for the first 50, 60 levels, and it'd get really slow later on, which of course Payday 3 tried to do, but it did it via challenges, which just was never the right way. Meanwhile, with Crime Boss, the thing I like about their progression system is it is decently paced, if perhaps maybe a little bit too slow, to be honest, with some of the higher levels. But the thing I think that saves that is that, unlike Payday 3, Crime Boss has 2 different game modes. You've got the roguelite mode, which is like the story mode, I guess, and you've also got the multiplayer with all the different game modes that the multiplayer has. Whether it's quick playing into heists, playing the urban legends, doing the big jobs, the small jobs, whether it's doing shuffles, doing a bunch of jobs in order, like a crime spree type thing from Payday 2, all of them will play into the progression system. No matter how you play, you're always leveling up, and I love that about that game. I think the thing that lets that game down, though, in particular, is that the rewards are a little bit too RNG based. When you level up, you get given the option of 3 prizes, but they could be really good prizes or really trash ones. You can get better options as time goes by, but there might be a particular character that you're waiting for that someone gets at level 20 that you don't get to level 80. and that sucks. I think there should be some more fixed mechanics in place to allow for you to get the rewards that you want a little bit faster. Maybe like every 5 levels you get a particular reward unlock point, and you can spend that on an exact unlock that you want to make sure that you kind of work past the RNG curve there. But either way, I think the actual progression system works really well. I am so low on health, I need to get meds. Wait, we're already in the vault. I'm too busy talking, I didn't realize we'd already looted the gaff. All right, well, they've done all the dye packs with that. Oh no. Oh, some of the dye, oh. Maybe doing commentary while playing is not the best move. Oops. And actually, silly me, just forgot to add something in. Also, with Payday 3's leveling, especially for the level up rewards now and the renown rewards, you do have a random pool of things, but they drop fairly often because there's not that many of them. Now, that could be a reason to say that there's not enough stuff and more needs to be added, and that's true. But I think just generally, you're more likely to get the things you want in Payday 3's drops than crime bosses at the minute, at least in my opinion. But I think the most important thing to take away from the progression systems is that in both games, they're really good, and I like them both. They have their flaws, perhaps, but I think overall, you've got a really good package deal there. So I'm overall pretty damn happy with how they work in both games. But the last kind of main comparison I wanted to make in terms of gameplay mechanics, because I do want to talk about characters and story in a little bit, but that's like more of a generic thing and a good way to conclude the video. But I want to talk about the DLC strategies. Now, I'm aware this is jumping the gun ever so slightly because, of course, we haven't seen what's happening with Boys in Blue yet. We know it's coming out June 27th, but we don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know if the DLC pricing has been adjusted. It could be in a dev blog soon. It could be that there's something they just drop immediately when the update comes out and say, oh, the price is the same or the price is different. We don't know, but I want to talk objectively about both DLC strategies. And I will just say right out the bat, I do think Crime Boss does this better. I mean, for one thing, if you've not already seen, it's been announced that on Steam, the Crime Boss is going to be valued at $20 RRP instead of the original $40, I think it was, like Payday 3's RRP. Now, if we're talking about package deals, I do think Crime Boss is the much better package. There's more heists in there, there's more to get out of the gameplay because you've got the story mode, the multiplayer. Within the multiplayer, there's far more jobs than Payday 3 has. So even when they were at RRP, I'd still say Crime Boss was the better value, but now it's half of that. I think that's amazing. I'm imagining that same price will apply to all platforms once the Steam release kicks off, but I need to check into that before I can say for sure. Either way, $20 is a steal for that. But the DLC strategy, what they've done until now was that any weapon packs that Crime Boss released, they made free for a few weeks. So if you claimed them when they came out, you didn't have to pay anything. But if you didn't claim them after a few weeks, they go up for a particular price, a few pounds, a few dollars, and then you'd have to pay for them. The only DLC that didn't fit that bill was Dragon's Gold Cup, which was the first like heist expansion, but that one you had to pay for right off the bat, which made sense. That was a proper expansion, added stuff to multiplayer and single player. I can understand them wanting to just charge up front for that. But the big kicker with Crime Boss is that with this Steam update, if you've not already heard, they're going to make all 4 DLCs, including the one that is releasing on the same day as Steam, another big expansion, Cagnoli's Order. They're going to make them all free, no matter what platform you're on. Even if you already own the game on, say, Xbox, on the day that the Steam release comes out, you can go on Xbox and claim the DLCs all for free, I think for 4 weeks. Once you've claimed them, you keep them forever. It's just you have to claim them within that 4-week window. And to me, that's just such a great way to introduce DLC. I don't think it's a very sustainable strategy long term, but I think what they're focused on right now is drawing in a bigger audience via Steam, and they're willing to take the sacrifice of not charging for the DLC in the hopes that Steam sales do well, which hopefully they will. I think the game deserves that. But Payday 3 is a different beast because Crime Boss doesn't have a season pass. Crime Boss also doesn't have several DLCs released at the same time and then try to bundle them in the same package deal like Chapter 1 for Syntax Error. And I will say that while I did think most of the DLC for Syntax Error was pretty good, I liked a lot of the outfits, I liked the guns for the most part. Syntax Error was pretty good, I still don't like the escape. I think the thing that let that DLC pack down the most, as I've said before, was the pricing. It was a pretty decent value for what you've got if they charged less than $20 for it. It was a joke. And I think that makes Payday 3 a bit more off-putting for the long-term support if the DLC continues to be at that price. Now, I'll be honest with you, my prediction is I don't think they'll charge that much for DLC 2. I think there were too many complaints about it, and I think they'll probably adapt it. What I don't think is that there'll be some big radical change, because they've obviously got to work out how the value for money works based on Silver and Gold Edition owners. You don't now want to charge so little for the DLC that people feel shafted for buying the Gold or Silver editions in terms of value for money. So it is a fine line they've got to walk. It's a bed they've made for themselves, and a problem they've created themselves, but it's now one they've got to be very tactful in how they solve, and I can appreciate that. But if we're talking about DLC strategies, I really do think, honestly, out of all the things I compare in this video, I think Crime Boss does it way better. Crime Boss has less DLCs, fine, but I love the idea that some of the smaller DLCs are free to get for the first few weeks if you're a new player, and then the big expansions they charge for because they're the things that are more worthwhile. I'd love it if Payday 3 did that, and to be fair, Payday 2 kind of did, because you sometimes got weapon packs for free in the game. It's kind of a similar effect, but Payday 3's not done that. We haven't had a free weapon in the entire game support since September last year. We know a free LMG is coming, but if that's all we got to look forward to for free weapons, it's not enough. So hopefully as time passes, that balance will change, because right now there's not enough free actual content versus paid. But to be fair, there's not enough content generally at the minute, so that's just an argument to be had for another the day. But finally, the last thing I want to talk about, like I said, was the characters and the story of the games. Now, I think this is quite an interesting one because the lore of Payday 3 has been heavily criticized, especially by people like Noli, who absolutely love the story of Payday and love making the videos on it. I've always been a little bit invested in Payday's story. I don't live and die by it, but I do think it's an interesting arc to follow along with. And I don't think Payday 3's story attempts were absolutely horrible, but I do think they definitely left us wanting more because there just wasn't enough to those cutscenes to make it worth being invested in the story, personally. It kind of feels a bit more like Payday 2 did at launch, where you have these different characters. Maybe they have a little less personality than they did in Payday 2, but that's up to debate. I think it's probably a similar level, Payday 2 at launch versus Payday 3 at launch. You may have evidence to back that up in another direction, fair enough. But I do feel like for a game that has such unique characters, it definitely could do more in that direction, in the story, the characters' personalities, things like that, just to make the game feel a little bit more special in that way. But then when you think about Crime Boss's story, you've got the lead characters that form Travis Baker's kind of like posse. You've got himself, you've got Casey, Nasara, Touchdown, Gloves. They all have pretty unique personalities. You don't get to see tons of them at times because you don't play as them. It's only told through cutscenes in the story mode. But I think just having a story mode, that roguelite, makes it more interesting for the setting of the game. I think if you compare Payday 3's very sterile New York setting with characters that maybe don't talk as much as people would like, versus Crime Boss that's in a fictional city, everyone's playing a part in it, everyone has a role to fill, and there's different antagonistic characters, friendly characters. I think the interactions there are much better, and I think Payday 3 could definitely take notes in that way, in making the characters stand out more and feel more unique, and give us just more in the setting. There's not enough story-wise right now, I feel like, to make the game fun, and not everyone will care. That's fair. I mean, in a game like this, gameplay is king. Being able to do the heists and make out with the money. Make out with the money? We're gonna kiss money bundles now? You get the point though, getting the money, getting the cash, that's king, so the story doesn't matter as much. But I think it's a good opportunity, especially Payday 2 proving it in the latter years of its main life cycle. You can deliver a really good story whilst also delivering good gunplay, and if you don't care about both of them, that's fair, but the offer's on the table for anyone who's interested in either aspect of the game that way. I think overall it's just really interesting to compare both games, because when Crime Boss was first revealed, when it first launched, I've said this before, everyone who liked Payday kind of went, this is a joke, this isn't gonna work, and when it came out, everyone went, this sucks. I think it's nice that with time, and especially as a result of Payday 3 not doing as hot as it could have done, people gave Crime Boss another chance and found that the game has got merit to it. Both games have merit to it. You can't sit here and say either of the games, why are you trying to cuff me, guard? Why are you doing that? No game is perfect, as I was trying to say. But I think it's nice to note that both games do have positives and negatives, and that while some of them don't need to be learned from each other, some of them could be. There are definitely different aspects that both games could take inspiration from for each other, and make both of them better. As I said at the start of this video, there is no harm in a bit of healthy competition, and I think both games would benefit greatly from it, and it's something I definitely want to see more of as both the games flourish over the next year or two, assuming both of them continue to get support for that long, which hopefully they will. I think there's definitely a lot of promise both of them have, and the heisting genre is still drastically underutilized in the gaming space. I'm really surprised there aren't more heisting games. There might be a couple more out there that I've seen or have forgotten, or things that are coming out, but off the top of my head, these are the only two that I've seen recently that I can properly think of. So it's nice to take the games that have done it the best, in my opinion, and really try and compare them. You know, Payday versus Crime Boss, two games that are doing heisting in unique ways, and maybe could learn things from each other, but also have unique things that definitely shouldn't be copied between games. And I think it's interesting to just have a bit of a chat about it. But there you go. There's my little gameplay chat. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I really appreciate you all hanging out on this video. If you want to see more videos like this where I just kind of talk to you while playing Payday as opposed to just talking in front of the camera, let me know. I do like that my face and my personality is part of the videos, but it doesn't mean it has to take up the whole of the screen. It can take up a face cam window, and I won't cry over it too much. Thank you all for watching. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed the video, please drop a like on the video. I greatly appreciate it. Don't know what that accent was. We move on. And if you want to see more content, click the subscribe button. Payday, Crime Boss, and also any other games I feel like the Life is Strange video, I'll deliver them. But most importantly, for people watching the Payday stuff, whenever there's Payday news or Payday discussions I want to make, I'll make videos on them, as always. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you all very soon with some new videos. As I said, I will be back later in the week, hopefully with a dev blog video. It won't be on Friday, but just keep an eye out for it. It normally goes out about 2 or 3 p.m. UK time. If I have chance, I'll share it on my socials, just so people can see it. And if it's interesting, I'll have some takes in the video. If not, I might just lump it in with next Friday's dev blog video. I'll see how I feel, honestly, but we'll take it from there. Either way, thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all very soon with a new video. In fact, probably the next video I make will be on Tuesday, June 18th, because that is the Steam release of Crime Boss. And I'm planning something big to celebrate that, but we'll see if I manage to land it. Fingers crossed, hopefully I do. Either way, see you all later. Thanks for watching. Take care.